Thank you, Joy. Thank you to everyone who is joining us today for this presentation about the Master of Translational Medicine program. We are a joint program between UC Berkeley as well as UCSF. And so we'd like to tell you a little bit more about that. We are under the Department of Bioengineering at Berkeley, as well as the Department of Bioengineering and Therapeutic Sciences at UCSF. So let's start. I will start by introducing us. Slides to advance. So I'm the executive director of the program. This is my third year in this position, and my background is over 40 years in medical device development and manufacturing for large companies as well as smaller and startups. And I'm really excited to be running this program because Berkeley is also my alma mater. So I have a big heart and pride in running this program. And my partner in crime here is Joy, so I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joy Ahn. I'm the program manager for the Masters of Translational Medicine program, and I have over 15 years of higher ed experience. And so I help do a lot of the administrative back-end stuff in student affairs. So that's a little bit about me. But most importantly, we're also joined by two of our student ambassadors. So Yvonne and Krishna, if you just wanted to say a real quick snippet about your background, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yvonne. I'm so glad you guys could join the call today. I recently just graduated from UCLA with a degree in microbiology and immunology and molecular genetics from UCLA, and now I'm in the MTM program.
Hi, everyone. My name is Krishna. I graduated from UCSF in 2021, and I've been working in machine learning as an engineer, and then afterwards as in business development in pharma. So it's nice to meet you all.
Thank you. The other two folks aren't joining us, but their contact info is here. Sophia Xiao, who is actually a doctor of medicine from National Yanming Chiao Tung University, and also Vinayak Tutej, a life sciences background. So you can see we have a variety intentionally of backgrounds that we recruit into our program. So let's get started. Like, why translational medicine? What does that mean? Why is it important? Well, a little bit of background. This Lucira check test was the first molecular test for COVID-19. And it was actually technology that came from UC Berkeley lab. And MTM students in our program actually even worked on this, a small part of it back in 2013 to 14. So obviously that was well before COVID came about. So there were the technology that had obviously pivots, changes in direction, and then eventual success as this test. And then even Lucira was bought out by another company, and the product is still in existence and is now a COVID and flu test. So just a little bit of background about why translational medicine is important. Basically, you can take things, and if you understand how to go after a market, you understand that there's regulatory aspects, certain testing, reimbursement strategies, all of those things are what we call translational medicine, or at least the tools of translating something from benchtop test, not only into clinical use, but specifically into commercialization. So meaning commercial clinical use, so use by patients across the country. So what is translational medicine, and how will this program prepare you to be a medical innovator? Those are the two questions that we hope to address and answer for you today. So I sort of touched upon it a little bit in my last slide, but let me go on to show you basically what translational medicine is and what it means actually for our program. There are a lot of programs that have translational medicine title, and our program is different from a lot of those in that we broadly really attack the whole problem of translating some kind of great, wonderful science or idea, not only into clinical use in one clinical trial, which is this shows here, but also into complete commercialization. And so that takes not just great science and then writing basically getting an approval at one hospital or getting grant money. It means that if you're going to go commercial, you need to have FDA approval within the US for commercialization. So basically, what translational then is taking something from concept into clinic and eventually into commercial use. And so it basically then, of course, gets these tools and this technology into the hands of clinicians and into use in patients who need them. So it really is a process that's very complex, and it involves lots of different organizations and agencies. So universities, as we like to say, are a great starting point. There's great discoveries there, but it doesn't automatically mean something is going to be successful in the market and in clinical and in patient use. So there's a lot to navigate. That's what this slide is meant to show with this little widget. And so let's step through what this maze of a path can look like and why we think our program gives you a lot of that training that makes it successful. So let's step through a few of these. First of all, is this product going to be something that can be funded and then will eventually pay back investors, or at least pay back if you're just one with grant money even? Are you going to be able to execute based on the money that you get? So what is the market for your technology? You need to know how you're going to pay for your idea and understanding the flow of money through the whole system is what will help you be successful. Because even if your goal is to be frugal, such as a global health, someone has to pay, okay? Whether it's an insurance agency, whether it's a government foundation. So the whole quote of "if you build it, they will come" is not going to be enough. You need to understand basically what the flow of money is and how your product is going to be reimbursed and or paid for. Also, health systems that you're going to work in affect the success of your product. So if you're innovating, who is going to use your product and who is the customer? Who's going to be, even if you have a doctor who's a big proponent of your device or your drug or your idea, who is paying for it? It's typically going to be hospitals, and those hospitals get 80 to 90% of all of their money from insurance companies, which means these reimbursements have to be planned out as well. You also need to understand from the physician or the user's standpoint, what is the workflow of how your product is going to be delivered? Is it going to be disruptive and then basically be difficult to adopt in terms of the use? Or is it something that's going to work into an already established flow of where your customer or your clinician has an appropriate habit that's going to make it easy for them to use the product, or even less time? Last but not least, we also teach you about the FDA regulatory strategies that you need to know. Safety and efficacy are key for basically protecting the US population from any kind of harm. FDA and other regulating bodies in other countries have the same types of goals. So these are good things because this safety culture grew out of past mistakes, and obviously people who were selling things were either not effective or actually harming people. So these regulations help protect people from those kinds of errors and even bad actors, right? So mostly this is learned on the job by students as they come out from a bachelor's degree, but it's important to understand these kind of pathways, and especially the FDA, because if you make changes in your design, even small changes, they can have effects on what you need to communicate with the FDA, and if you need to go through changes before you can put your change of product into the market. So you have to really understand this from an early stage, and also understand if you're going to need a clinical trial, how long that's going to take, because a lot of times it can take several years, for example. So this is just a few of those things I mentioned, just 3 of them, but there's also IP, or intellectual property, that we have courses on. We also talk about the market, reimbursement, like I had mentioned, and all of these classes are taught by industry experts. So intellectual property, for instance, we have a law firm where we have 3 different lecturers that come and talk about intellectual property, the patenting process, and freedom to operate, for example. So with all of that, our program mission is really to provide all of you, whether you're an engineer, whether you already have an MD, or even if you're a pre-med student, a life scientist, etc. We want to provide you with both science and engineering, the business aspects, and the biomedical and clinical strategy that's necessary to take new medical innovations from initial idea into clinical use and eventually commercialization. So I'm going to turn this over to Joy, and she can talk about our cross-functional collaboration.
So as you saw in that mission statement, we really capture the diversity within our student body, and we'll show you that in the next slide. So we have engineers, scientists, and clinicians coming together to work on real-world problems. So these cross-functional interdisciplinary collaboration is absolutely foundational to what we do. And it's something that makes our program so unique. So the fact that we bring together students from such diverse backgrounds to work on common problems. So it really mirrors the reality of health tech innovation. So we know it takes diverse teams to be successful in addressing these complex problems and challenges. So that's actually reflected in our student body. And you can see in our next slide, like what the backgrounds of our students are. So if you're thinking, this kind of sounds cool, but how do I fit into this? If you look at our student body, you can see that we've really baked this interdisciplinary cohort into the program. So we've been around for about 15 years now. And we used to just have mostly engineers and biomedical engineering. But we know that it takes a lot of different lenses and a lot of different people with different backgrounds to make a successful program like this, and how we mimic health tech in general. So we started adding life science backgrounds and people that are clinicians. So if you see like our current cohort of 40, almost a little less than half have an engineering background. And then another third have a life science background. That last 10% gets are people that are clinicians. So you can, not only are we diverse in background, you also, as we mentioned, we are a dual campus program. So we take classes on both sides of the bay. So we draw on the strengths and the resources at each campus to give you the breadth of curriculum it takes to be a Master of Translational Medicine. So we are housed in the bioengineering department on the Berkeley campus, and in the bioengineering and therapeutic sciences at UCSF. So you'll be taking courses at both campuses, and yes, that means we're commuting across the bay. One day a week is how we designed our curriculum. So I'll turn it back to Verna. She can break down what a year in MTM would look like.
Okay, so as we mentioned, or you may have seen, our program is a 1-year master's. So that's intentional. That actually ends up equating to a 10 months total, because we cover the semester system at Berkeley. That's where we start before UCSF even starts the quarters, and then we end on the UCSF quarter system. So It starts in August, ends in June. It's obviously fairly fast-paced and intense. And as we work our way from left of the slide to right, we start with an orientation leadership event of a couple of days. And it is right before the boot camp starts, because our students take the week and a half to 2 weeks of fun engineering leadership boot camp courses. That's part of our core curriculum. And that is for the 2 weeks before the semester starts. And then classes for the whole semester start in that September, I think end of August, beginning of September timeframe. And at that time, we also would be assigning you your capstone project. Your capstone project is something that you will get to vote on. We try to place students in one of their top 3 choices. And typically you're at the same time that you're doing your boot camp, usually at noon or at the end of the day, you'll be listening to Zoom pitches that our potential capstone sponsors would be presenting to you. So I try to recruit, or at least solicit, at least twice, 1.5 to 2 times as many capstone projects as I think that we're going to need for the year, so that our students have a wide variety of choices, whether it be therapeutics, devices, AI, machine learning, all kinds of addressing all kinds of different disease states. You'll then be starting up with your UCSF fall quarter. At the same time, you're still taking classes at Berkeley, and so you'll be going to both campuses. But what we do is on Wednesdays, all of your core classes for UCSF are lined up. So you will only have to be traveling to Berkeley, from Berkeley to San Francisco, or at least having classes in San Francisco 1 day per week. Our students live on either side of the bay. And then, of course, we've got a break in between, and right before the break in December, what you can see with that little podium there is a winter showcase where we have a poster session and students present what they've learned so far on their capstone project. Then we've got our next leadership boot camp, similar to the very beginning of the school year. You'll have 2 weeks again with the Fung Institute Leadership Boot Camp right before the spring quarter, spring semester. And then we go through as you're working on your same capstone project throughout the whole year. We get to May, where you have your graduation or commencement ceremony, because your real graduation doesn't really happen until June. So we say that these commencement walks are your ceremony, but graduation from the program with grades and everything is in that beginning to middle part of June. So let's drill down into the details of what these courses are that you're taking during the semester and quarter, and how they relate to your capstone project. So here's how we prepare you in terms of curriculum to be biotech and medtech innovators. We divide course units into these 3 different categories: science and engineering courses, business and entrepreneurship courses, and then clinical needs and strategies courses. And we put the capstone course here in the middle because basically you're going to be applying all of your learnings to your capstone project. The capstone course is taught over at UCSF, and it helps you apply all of your learning with experience, like obviously experiencing a real world project. There'll be assignments to where you're applying them directly to your capstone project. And there's with the 24 units of semester units total, you have some room for electives as well. So our core classes cover these kinds of topics and titles. Project management is basically kind of a companion course that I teach, companion to the capstone course. Healthcare, finance, and economics, clinical needs and therapy solutions, very much focused on devices, for instance, is an ethics class. We've got translational challenges in diagnostics, devices, and therapeutics, and designing clinical research for industry, for example. With our addition of our therapeutics track, we've had another couple of highly recommended courses that aren't on this map right now, but just so that you know about them. Bio 224 is a great class on drug delivery, and there's several other classes that we're constantly trying to keep track of and be aware of so we can make sure that they are able to be fit into the program of electives. So here on the device track, obviously we're going to have several medical device capstone project options. And then the medical device modules are incorporated into Bio E296, which is the capstone course. And specifically where things can be different, the device versus a therapeutic would be things like a regulatory path, intellectual property strategy, and the market, and of course, how you do prototyping. So those specifically have lectures focused on devices. Design control is incorporated into my class 290, which is in the spring. And then we highly recommend the 252 class, clinical need-based therapy solutions, like I had mentioned in the last slide. And there's lots of electives on both campuses. In the therapeutics track, again, we've got project options. I think we have 3 therapeutics projects this year. And then the modules, right now, we've been interleaving them into both the 296 course and the 290 course. So I'll be incorporating quality by design into 290. So hence the title for that class is quality by design control. So it covers both devices as well as drugs and biologics. And then the recommended courses for electives are 224, like I mentioned, drug delivery, and also chemical engineering 275, which is advanced bioprocess engineering. And it covers a lot of the manufacturing and process validation steps for drug manufacturing. And there's, again, electives on both campuses. So the capstone projects are real-world projects. They're already in existence, so you aren't going to be coming up with something from scratch yourself. That is how we are able to keep our program in a 10-month time frame. These are real-world projects, and so they come from both faculty, clinicians, and they come from startups. So they're all for the purpose of you learning. And so you'll be assessing unmet clinical needs for these projects. You'll be working on some kind of novel aspect that you're able to bring forward. You'll learn about product development, business planning, regulatory strategy, and you'll get all of this with mentoring through clinicians, corporate executives, myself, for instance, researchers. We have office hours, and we have career and capstone advising hours. This is a photo of what the winter showcase looks like. So this is one of our students from previous year, basically presenting their team poster with another team member that you see here off to the right. She's also listening to Elijah. And it's in a public forum, and it's in the Stanley atrium. So if you kind of visualize like 9 or 10 posters with team members, such as would be possibly yourself, presenting your project midway through the year. So let's also look at a deep dive of what these capstones look like. So, for example, this year, we are looking at sponsors from UCSF and Berkeley, of course, and then also some of these startups. So the names of the sponsors are at the top in the white, and then the project names are in the yellow boxes here. So you can see we cover things from renal function at UCSF to radio gland therapy and theranostics, HydroShield, which is a thermoprotectant gel for thermal ablation procedures when you're trying to basically eliminate tumors. Phase shift, which is basically a pediatric face reconstruction, 3D printing for utilizing it without surgery. Digital interventions for ADHD, robot surgery for minimally invasive surgery. So you can see there's just quite a few and very broad types of disease states that students are working on, but also the technologies are quite varied depending on what your interest is. We also have, these are the 9, but we also have a 10th project. It's also a UCSF and UC Berkeley collaboration, and it specifically is selective automation for mammography interpretation with AI. You'll learn from industry experts mentioned here. Nada Hanafi is founder and manager, and she is in MedTech Strategy Advisor. She has long-term excellent regulatory affairs background. Dan Burnett, president and CEO of Theranova. He's also our resident entrepreneur, and he's got an MD and an engineering background. And Theranova is an incubator, so he's already launched several startups out of Theranova. MedTech Strategy Advisors, you can see their logo here where Nada is from, and Theranova, but we also have attorneys from the law firm Levine, Baghdad and Hahn, and they come to lecture on that intellectual property module. And so this is an amazing network here in the Bay Area that we bring to you within our curriculum. And our scientific experts, we've got Shugo Roy, who is our faculty director at UCSF, Dorian Liebman here at UC Berkeley, Charles Hart, who's the executive director at UCSF Catalyst Program, and he has a long background in industry in drug discovery and therapeutics. So we were both at Berkeley around the same time, so many years ago, and I went in the med device path, and he is in the drug discovery and development path. So some great experts to give you guidance, not only in your capstone, but also on your career path. But really, it just would not be as wonderful as it is without our wonderful students from all the backgrounds that they come from. It truly is, I think, the best part of our program. And building this community year after year is what really makes it valuable for the students who come in here and makes it wonderful while they're in the program to connect with each other. The other thing that really makes it special is that you will find that if you go onto our website, mtm.berkeley.edu, you will see that our admissions process is extremely transparent. And why that I think that is important is that a lot of undergrads or folks that were maybe thinking of an advanced degree like a PhD are used to the more traditional question of asking, what's your acceptance rate? What I want to tell you is that if you go to our admissions page and you click on the link that says, and here's our rubric, all you need to do is look at and score that rubric and build your resume and your experience from this point on to meet as high a score as you can get on that rubric. The scoring of those different areas is from 1 to 5. If you score yourself somewhere around 3.5, by averaging all of those different areas, you have a very high likelihood of getting in. So this is a niche program, right? Everybody doesn't want to go into specifically medical device or drug discovery and development in industry. So because of that, we're looking for people who are going to be a great fit with their background and ability to be a team member. And so it's not just about grades, and it's not like picking only the top 1% because there's thousands of applicants. It really is about picking the right students who meet our rubric criteria. And so that is something I really wanted to let you know about, because what we really strive for is transparency. And lastly, before I get into questions, I just really wanted to emphasize that we also have scholarships for students of underrepresented groups. So we have 2 graduate opportunity program scholarships that we give out each year. And we also have a Native American program scholarship, and we also look for GEM students. So just keep in mind that when you are going for a professional program such as ours, you want to be figuring out what your where you're going to be able to finance and fund your program. And it's a good time to start now. So with that, we'd love to have you consider joining us, and it is time for questions.
Great. So I know that sorry, my feedback. I have feedback right now. So we'll put you in breakout rooms with current students so that you can get their perspective on the program. And then we'll come back in about 10 minutes and open it up to a large group Q&A. So I'll go ahead and open those up and let have fun speaking with our current students. See you shortly. So before we open it up to questions from the main group, we just want to go ahead and let you all know of a few more opportunities coming your way. So we have 2 more different information sessions coming up. So one that focuses on just putting together a competitive application in general for grad school. So although we touch just a little bit on MTM, most of it is applicable to any grad school you're applying to. So feel free to attend that one. And also we go into a 1-hour deep dive of different career pathways that you can take with MTM. So you've heard today about the diversity in backgrounds, and diversity in curriculum, and that also leads to a diversity in different career pathways after the program. So we have alumni come and give their perspective and talk about how MTM led them to where they are now. So since you got a chance to talk with a few of our ambassadors in a group setting, we just also wanted to let you know that they're available to talk with you one-on-one. So office hours actually have just started this last week. So if you are to go on our website at mtm.berkeley at berkeley.edu/ambassadors, you'll see it there. You'll also see their information on a few different places. So this is a great time to talk with them and get one-on-one advice, counseling, perspective from them. And then last slide is just a final PSA. So start your application today if you're interested in applying for next fall. That way you can really take your time to put all your thought into it. And also letters do take a lot of time. So since this is a joint program, you actually only apply through UC Berkeley. That's the one application portal that we go through. And the deadline coming up is January 6th. If you have questions in the meantime at all, please feel free to email us at mtm@berkeley.edu. So now we can open it up, and I'll stop the recording and we can open it up to questions from all.